All right, so the topic that I wanted to discuss this evening is international ETFs and foreign currency exposure. So last week was obviously a very big week for Europe with the ECB meeting concluding. And what I wanted to discuss is just making sure that one is aware of all the risks that are involved when owning foreign ETFs, such as EWG, which we saw a lot, which is the Germany ETF, which we saw a lot of activity yesterday, a lot of option activity, and some of the other ETFs were also very busy. As you pull up the volume real quick in some of these names, but you can see quite a bit of volume taking place. Same thing with EZU, which is another ETF that tracks Europe. That you can see, some very large volume, which is expected when you have an ECB meeting. But what I wanted to talk about is just the performance and why the performance has not been great with with an ETF such as EWG. So one of the things that people, investors are not always familiar with is that when you own an international ETF, those assets that the fund owns, those stocks, are denominated in foreign currency, or in this case, euros. So you can see that, over the last year, the performance has not been great. But if you look at the underlying index, or the DAX, in in dollar terms, you can see that it's done extremely well. It's just had a breakout, and performance is much different. And that's obviously attributed to the weakening or the depreciating euro that we've seen over the last year. And this was very similar to what you saw a few years back when over in Japan, when Abe came in and started his stimulus program. The big flock of assets went towards, as the yen depreciated, went to DXJ. The DXJ had much better performance than EWG. So very similar ETFs in terms of benchmarks, in terms of what underlying stocks they own, but one was hedging the one was hedging the yen, and one was not. So, going back over 5 years, you can see the performance was amazing. Went from basically from $30 to $50. And then has leveled off since the stimulus has kind of remained about the same, and the investment into Japan has cooled a little bit. But what I wanted to show is HEDJ hedges out the euro, and I had talked about this in the chat room last week, and I wanted to make sure that everybody knew, all members of the chat room knew that this ETF was out there. And while the activity was going on in EWG, you don't know what people are doing. They may have put EWG in, but they may have hedged the currency themselves. So if you're not willing to do that, if you're not willing to take a short position in the euro, you can use this particular ETF instead, and I think this is going to do better for you. So HEDJ, and you can see, it's recently had a breakout right above the resistance line, that we're looking at here, and it's accompanied by a huge amount of volume. So this is you always want to see the volume, confirm the trend or confirm the breakout. So I think that's a very positive sign. If you take a step back further, over 5 years, you can see, it's right about ready to make a new all-time high. So I would give this a couple more days just to make sure that it validates this. It kind of is in a little bit of a doji here. So we want to make sure that it extends past that. But then the other thing that I always find interesting with ETFs is that you can track the investment that is going in and out of the ETF. So you can do that by looking at the outstanding shares, and this is a lovely, marvelous chart to look at. You can see this is tracking all the investment that's been going into last year. So obviously people are onto this. If you look at now how much in assets is following this particular ETF, it's now, we're looking at a market cap of $7.3 billion. Which, $7.3 billion, that's a lot. What does it relate to in terms of, the other fund that we talked about, DXJ? DXJ is $12 billion. So, I think And going back to the outstanding shares, just to show a comparison, you can see it's basically there hasn't been any new money being added to this ETF over the last year. But to look at what it did, back when Abe took over, you could see this heavy investment going into the ETF, driving the performance. So I think with HEDJ, we're not at the point where it's completely peaked out. I think we're somewhere in this phase. As you could see, as I just pointed out before, that HEDJ does not have as much of assets as DXJ has. So I think it's got some room to run. So going into some technicals, first look at EWG, and this also looks good. I mean, from a technical aspect, it looks like, from the MACD just recently crossed here. This is a bullish sign. The Williams is increasing. It looks like it wants to head to this green. It's kind of coming upon a little bit of stalling a little bit, but let's see if it hits into the green line. We want it to get into the overbought area, and we want to see it stay there for a while. So some encouraging signs. I also, besides the Ichimoku cloud, I also look at a couple shorter dated moving averages. So it just recently crossed. I mean, this is a good cross. This is something that you want to see, indicating that it's moving towards a bullish trend. Same thing with HEDJ. And this is a 3-month chart, but this is the doji that I was just talking about. So we want to see how this plays out. Definitely don't want to see it turn the other way. So I think a couple days will tell us the story if it's going to continue. But if you look at the 10-day, it's hugging this 5-day moving average. So as long as it stays above this and keeps this trend keeps going up and it doesn't break the line, something we want to monitor. And of course, the other studies, overbought but remaining overbought. So until it breaks this, I think we're in a good place to be. So again, my pick to watch is HEDJ along with the other European ETFs. But I think making sure that you know what risks these ETFs have in them can help you be profitable with them. Again, I think the EWG trade and some of the other European ETFs were also they were bought along with buying some positions, or shorting some positions with the euro, coupling that and really trying to earn the performance in that. So I hope this helps explain, and if you have any questions at all, please reach out to me and let me know if this is not clear.